woke up to a calm morning today, so I decided to have a go at flying my Whoop outdoors. This is a quick potted history of where it came from. It started life as an E013 red pepper that came along with the VR6 goggles and got me into FPV in the first place. So eventually I broke the frame on the E13 and got a new frame and transplanted it, and then the Santa drones came out, and they were just so inexpensive and a lot more powerful than the E13. So once again, time for a transplant. This time I had to solder the wires onto the board to transpose the camera, and that's how I wound up with a slightly more powerful Whoop. And I was ready to roll. All I needed was a calm morning, and eventually it came along. So first flight, just trying in the backyard. It's been so long since we've had a decent sort of calm morning. It's still pretty hot. It's going to be mid-30s today, centigrade, but it was nice and calm in the morning and not too hot, around 30 I think when it started. So it's looking west out over the sea. And the wonderful thing, this is all perfectly legal because this drone weighs under 40 grams, it's covered in hoops, it's just a toy, you can use it inside, outside, so I can't see anybody getting too bothered about it. It's been a lot of fun. This is the thing that's made me capable of flying the Bugs 3 FPV over a much longer distance. But I was curious to see how it'd go. I'm waiting for a better camera, a TX03, so I knew that this had fairly limited range, but I didn't really notice too much of a problem out the back of the house. In fact, just flying through the veranda part of it, that reminded me of flying indoors, but it's quite weird seeing the roof of the house from the sky on something of this size and power. But it's still a big step up between the motors on the E13 and the E011, which is basically what the Santa drone is. So a bit repetitive, but I'm just sort of getting the feel of the thing. And something I realised was I had to make sure I calibrated both the controller, particularly after a battery charge, and also the Santa drone, which is pretty standard. You just put both the sticks down to the right. If I don't do that occasionally, the thing starts to drift. So it's a touch and go. Got away with that one. A little bit of break up. That's a mirror at the end of the garden there that I'm flying towards. Another quick look over the roof, over the sea. Again, a few months ago I wouldn't have realised just how much fun you could have with such a tiny drone. And it's fantastic having those hoops around it to avoid any propeller damage. Doing this with the Hubsan X4107L, I was breaking props all the time. And all the good things come to an end. But another great thing I was discovered is I could move towards where it had gone down, blip the throttle, and hear the motors respond, because typically at least one motor is turning. So I'm now out front of the house, flying under the pergola and past the garage. The sun's coming up a bit, and it's getting hotter. So I'm starting to have a little bit of fogging with the goggles. Eventually that brings this session to a close. I start to realise the value of high-priced goggles with a fan on them. But again, a lot of fun. Here I'm starting to push it a bit to see what kind of range I've got. Again, the manoeuvrability of these little things with the jumper controller is fantastic. I wouldn't want to try this with the little controller that it came with. Again, a little bit of breakup. Okay, yep, inside turn and schmack. Still, you learn by doing, and with the hoops around the props, you don't pay much of a penalty compared to naked props. You can hear it occasionally because I've got the camera that's filming this feed sitting in a flower pot near to where I'm sitting. So that's why you can hear the drone as it gets up close, and then there's no sound from the drone later on. This time I managed to get through without catching on the underside of the pergola, which is always an improvement. Again, a little bit of break up at height there. Another touch and go. And once again. In fact, I was probably a bit lucky to keep flying with that one. And this is where I have to bring it in because my goggles would really start to fog up, so I just couldn't cope anymore. But having a ball. So after a bit of a break to defog and to change battery, in the air again. Again, one of the limitations with the E013 was it had a 200 milliamp battery. These are 260, and it really makes a difference in terms of length of flight and also power. And I bought an aftermarket battery which is 45C, and that's noticeably more punchy than the 35s that they come with. Again, a bit of break up at the end there. Again, it gets a bit repetitive. It's probably not very interesting to people who aren't actually flying these things, but I know I certainly found it useful when I was first getting in to see what people could do. So here I've flown out of range. I've chanced my arm quite a bit. Actually it broke up on the monitor before it broke up on the goggles, but I was starting to have trouble, so I managed to touch down there. Seemed to be okay again, so once more into the air. Ready for another loop. Get a little higher than I thought it would go, head out towards the road. Trying for a little bit more variety with my turns. Looking back, and it's amazing how easy it is to get into a set pattern and keep doing the same thing. Okay, here's where it starts to get hairy. I've got really high over the roof. I'm getting severe breakup. I can see I'm looking up the hill, so I've managed to get away from the roof. I'm heading out to the road and lost signal. Again, I blipped the throttle and found that there were some bushes out the front. That's how I managed to locate it. So I stomped my way through the bushes, picked it up, carried it back up the steps. If I had to, I could have looked at the footage to get some idea, but really, just being able to blip the throttle and hear the thing in the bush is really handy for retrieval, which is good because I don't think something this size you could put a beeper on. So back to my garden chair and ready for another go. Okay, by now I'm getting a bit hot, a lot of fogging, so decided to wind it up. So looking at the garden arch, time to close down. Bye.